Shadow Alolan Muk is now in Pokemon Go, and I know I'm a little late to the party. I'm making a video about Shadow Alolan Muk, but I figured I'd be doing a disservice to y'all by not talking about it here, because this thing will be a very potent option in the Open Great League meta. So what's so great about Shadow Alolan Muk here? Well, I'm noticing if you use it as a save swap, you consistently put your opponent in this position where you'll either get an energy lead or a shield advantage on them after Alolan Muk is defeated. Chances are you're going to lose alignment, right? But you will get the ability to farm the Pokemon, or the opponent will be down a shield, which can play to your advantage depending on what kind of team comp you're using. I know in the current Open Great League meta, alignment is favored heavily over getting, an energy lead or a shield advantage, but I think we all know that an energy lead or a shield advantage can be quite big for determining outcomes. So basically in the 1-1 shield scenario, using the default IVs of Shadow Alolan Muk here against the rank 1 stat product Open Great League variations, you can see that it has a positive win ratio when things are pretty even to begin with. I mean, it's a poison jab user, a shadow one at that, and it also has the threat of acid spray, so it can get some cheeky acid spray wins with that. But the advantage I'm talking about is seen in the zero shield situation. You can see here it is losing more often, but the circumstances surrounding those losses is what makes Shadow Alolan Muk so valuable. For instance, you can look at the Shadow Swampert matchup, and what you'll see here is that Shadow Alolan Muk is getting dunked on with Hydro Cannon before doing much of anything. However, if this Shadow Alolan Muk is used as a save swap, it'll have a 1 fast move energy lead against the Swampert here. Swampert being the counter swap. And you can see here now it's not KOing on the Hydro Cannon, it has to go for the Earthquake to KO, and depending on how the IVs shake out, the Shadow Swampert may be taken out in this situation from the Dark Pulse. They could throw the Hydro Cannon instead, but then you can see here that it ends up being a draw. And then mind you, this is up against the rank 1 Shadow Swampert. Lower quality Swamperts won't have this kind of HP, so if they don't shield that Dark Pulse, they could get taken out. Now, let's say they do shield the Dark Pulse, they're in a pretty spiffy spot, they got some farm action in, but the gamble with Shadow Alolan Muk here is that this might not be a Dark Pulse. It could be an Acid Spray, and this could put the Shadow Swampert in a disadvantageous situation. They just spent a shield on a debuffing move, right? So I think this is probably the best counter swap into the Alolan Muk, given, that it does get farm and how explosive Shadow Swampert can be. But other Pokemon aren't so fortuitous. For example, let's look at our friend Medicham, a very common Pokemon you'd probably have on your team. And you can see here that Medicham does win. It lands the Psychic, but it's only down to 7 HP. And just like with the Shadow Swampert, this could be an Acid Spray instead of a Dark Pulse. So if you spend a shield trying to preserve your Medicham, it could put you at an even tougher spot than you were in before. And this is just a Psychic Medicham. Even if it was a Dynamic Punch Medicham, you're going to be slow on the draw. And then also mind you that this is a save swap Alolan Muk, and I'm not even giving it extra energy here. So it's able to, outdraw you for that big Dynamic Punch. The Dynamic Punch wouldn't KO anyways, and they Dark Pulse you. Now you're at 25 HP with no energy. Are you going to get farmed? I think you might get farmed. If you get farmed by a Shadow Charizard, that's pretty scary. All that energy on a Shadow Charizard. And then, if you shielded this, it could have been an Acid Spray. So in a lot of these matchups, you'll find that Shadow Alolan Muk will be putting the opponent into that position. So while the meta right now is favoring having alignment, it's a little RPS than we'd like it to be. In the future, things get to be a little bit less RPS. Well, Shadow Alolan Muk will be an even bigger player. And this isn't to say that it's not a big player right now. As I showed you in a lot of the even shield scenarios, it's still quite potent. It's a good hard counter to a lot of ghost type options. It's not too shabby against fighting types. So Shadow Alolan Muk, definitely a force of nature and will definitely appreciate in time. So if Shadow Alolan Muk is so good, then what are going to be the better options to it? And honestly, it's probably going to be the Pokemon that can get the drop on Shadow Alolan Muk. So Swampert, Shadow Swampert are both good options for that. If you end up throwing the Acid Spray and it lands, it's going to do like nothing to them. If they shield it, they do get the farm action. So these are probably two of the better options. Toxicroak can also get the jump on Shadow Alolan Muk with the Mud Bomb, and a lot of them are attack weighted too, so they're going to get the counter break point, so that could be very good for stopping the Shadow Alolan Muk from doing much of anything. And Toxicroak duels against a lot of Pokemon pretty well because Sludge Bomb and Mud Bomb do have some pretty decent neutral coverage going on there. And then of course we got the Stunfisk. Of course the Stunfisk, where it might not get a whole lot of farm action in, depending on how the matchup plays out, but if it does get any sort of an energy lead going on, of course Stunfisk takes an inch, turns it into a mile, so it'd be a good option for that too. In a perfectly even situation, Shadow Charizard does outpace it to the big attack, but of course if it's used as a safe swap, then Shadow Charizard's not going to have such a great time in that fight, right? Diggersby handles it pretty good too, but Diggersby also is very vulnerable to getting farmed down because of the fire and ground coverage, so it's a little bit of a risky option. So I'd say all in all, oh wow, that's funny how Alolan Ninetales is here, Powdered Snow. Probably just doing it. Zero shield situation, man. But yeah, all in all, I'd have to say the better options are probably going to be the Swampert, Toxicroak, the Galarian Stunfisk. Those are probably going to be the safest options to counter swap into a safe swap Alolan Muk. Then of course there are the Pokemon that can outpace it in a neutral situation as well. If you lead with those Pokemon, then it limits Alolan Muk's ability to safe swap into them. And if Alolan Muk isn't doing the nasty safe swap job, then that kind of limits its utility in that specific kind of team comp. It's not the biggest alteration in the whole world, but it's something to stave off the big, spooky, stinky Muckman. At any rate, that's all I gotta say right now about Shadow Alolan Muk. If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to see more like it, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. I guess a little special announcement since you made it here to the end of the video. I haven't announced this yet publicly, but I am going to the Fort Wayne tournament. So if you're going to Fort Wayne regional tournament here, well, maybe I'll see you there.